How's it going? My name is Kevin Kenny. Welcome to a brand new edition of the Build series live here in New York City. And we have a very special guest today. Joining us in just a few minutes will be country music star Wade Bowen, who just released his brand new studio album, Solid Ground, where he actually wrote 10 of the 11 tracks himself. We're going to talk all about that. He's also got a ton of stuff going on outside of the world of music we're also going to get to. But before we welcome Wade here in the studio, let's take a quick look at a recent live performance of his new song, So Long 6th Street.
The new record is called Solid Ground. This is the Solid Ground session. Would you please welcome Wade Bowen.
So long, 6th Street. Yeah, I think it's time. I'm all out of quarters to play. I'm all out of rhymes. Got a few loose strings I'm gonna have to leave behind. Please don't load it against me. I think we both know why. Yeah, I think we both know why. So long, 6th Street. Gonna miss you under my feet. Well, sometimes I gotta run till I can find a heartbeat. Tell me now when you see her that I was too weak to look her really eye. I hate it when she cries anyway. Well, anyway, I think she's probably better off without me. So long, 6th Street. Oh, it's you I miss the most. I've stumbled on from your arms. How many times I just don't know. Maybe you could leave a light on in case I come back around. On my way to looking for me, some lost and found town. So long, 6th Street. Gonna miss you under my feet. Well, sometimes I gotta run till I can find a heartbeat. Tell me now when you see her that I was too weak to look her in the eye. I hate it when she cries anyway. Well, anyway, I think she's probably better off without me. So long, 6th Street. So long, 6th Street. Gonna miss you under my feet. Yeah. Well, so long, 6th Street. Gonna miss you under my feet. Yeah, sometimes I gotta run till I can find a heartbeat. Tell me when you see her that I was too weak. Don't look her in the eye. I hate it when she cries anyway. Well, anyway, I think she's probably better off without me. So long, 6th Street. Gonna miss you under my feet. Yeah, so long, 6th Street.
All right, joining us now in studio, Mr. Wade Bowen. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? I'm good.
Now, you know, there's so much going on with you, both in the music, there's a ton to talk about, but then also you got so much stuff going on outside of music that's very exciting. And I was thinking about, you know, when we sat down here at Build, where would we start? And I thought about it, and I think there is one, You know, there is a very clear square one subject that I think ties everything together, and that's the great state of Texas.
Yes, for sure. That's where I was born and raised and still live there. I live in a little river town just north of San Antonio called New Braunfels.
Now, what does Texas mean to you? And I know that's a loaded question, but I want to start there because everything is really born out of your love for Texas, and you still live there to this day.
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody always makes fun of Texans because that's all we ever want to talk about, it seems like. So I don't want to wear it out, but I've been talking about Texas a lot with this album, being called Solid Ground. Texas is my solid ground, and I felt like it was time to write about that. I think I touched on it on other albums previously, but this was the first one that I really focused on. What's the flavors? What's the musical heritage of Texas? It's rock, country, Americana, Tejano, blues, a little bit of everything. I mean, we play shows with Western swing bands that are opening up for us, and vice versa. So I mean, there's bands that'll play, blues bands that'll play with us. We'll play shows together. That's what I love about Texas as far as musically. I don't know if that answered your question totally.
No,
I love the food. I love everything about where I live. My little town, I feel like I live in a movie. So there's a lot of, and I've really enjoyed with this album to be able to, for example, sit here in New York and talk about what I love most about my home state. And when people listen to this album, they get a big taste of that.
Yeah. And I love you said in a recent interview or video piece where it's like, you don't even know if you say the word Texas on the album lyrically, but you get the sense of it. You're immersed in the spirit of Texas. And I'm glad you brought up the influences of Texas music because I guess I was raised in New Jersey up here, right outside New York City. So I was a casual country fan growing up. I always appreciated, the classics, but I didn't know the intricacies of the genre. And I was actually down in Nashville, of all places, and I was talking to a guy named Aaron Watson last year, fellow Texan and country artist.
Yeah, good guy.
And Aaron put me on to how specific, or I should say the difference is between Texas country and country that comes from, say, Nashville or other regions of the country, and how he was very adamant that it was the best kind of country, Texas. But what are the characteristics that are unique to Texas country music?
I don't know. I mean, I've always considered myself an artist from Texas instead of just a Texas country artist. I mean, I think there's, Aaron has made it very clear that he's a Texas country artist. But and it's the same reason that I sit here, once again, in New York. The last thing someone wants to hear when we're going overseas to Europe to do a tour. We don't want to just Texas all the time. But I think it's a really cool, the way that we presented this album, the way I wrote it was to talk about where I'm from, because I feel like if I'm writing about my hometown, or if I'm writing about places that I visited or memories that I have from Austin or West Texas or wherever it may be, I feel like people can relate to that in some form or fashion, no matter where you are in the world. You all have, there's a song on here called Acuna that is about a border town in Mexico, right on the border of Texas. And it was where I used to go when I was underage and would hang out over there at the Corona Club and have lots of good memories of that. And I think everybody anywhere has an Acuna in their life that they got away and have a lot of memories of. So that's really what, I'm a huge Springsteen fan, and you bring up Jersey. It's like, man, I mean, you listen to his records, especially in the early days, you really got a glimpse of where he's from and what it's all about. And I really wanted this record to do that. And I think we pulled it off. And like I said, I don't think I say Texas one time in the entire record. That kind of makes me proud. We pulled it off with just the characters in this mentioned in a lot of cities. Right,
and that's really, I'm glad, I love that you love Springsteen, because Springsteen, growing up in New Jersey, it's like a rite of passage to that whole discography, right? Mm-hmm. And again, he doesn't hit it on the nose like you don't hit it on the nose here, but he captures that essence of driving down the New Jersey Turnpike or being down in Asbury Park by the ocean, and you've done that here. And what's cool and exciting as an artist when you do a body of work like that, or you're able to achieve a body of work like that, is you become a part of the culture. You can become a part of people's memories, and the essence of growing up in Texas and living in Texas and what that means. And it's really cool that you did that here with Solid Ground. Now, with all the Texas talk, you did make the record though in East Nashville. Is that correct?
I did, yes.
Now that is like the Brooklyn of Nashville, right? I understand. Whenever I go down there, people are like, "Oh, that's where the hipsters live."
Yeah, that's where all the broke musicians used to live, and they still are. So. There's a lot of cool little backyard studios. My producer, Keith Gaddis, is actually a Texas guy as well. we've been friends for years. So it's really fun to make a record with a friend. I haven't really done that before. And he's got a studio, a beautiful place in East Nashville in his backyard. You pull through his driveway and go in the back there, and it opens up. Looks like you feel like you're on a small ranch in South Texas.
Kind of remind you of home?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. He does a good job of feeling like you're at home there. And so it's just a good vibe, and I felt at home there when I met with him and, talking about doing a record together. And he's an amazing songwriter as well, so I've never been pushed as a songwriter. I asked him, I said, I want you to really push me as a songwriter more than I've ever been pushed, and he really did. I mean, it's like I spent a whole year probably writing the record, and then we were writing the morning of. I'd get there 3 hours before everybody else in the band, and we'd write a song that morning, then we'd cut that evening. So it was a lot of fun. It was a very different way of making a record for me, but and I never worked harder for an album, and maybe that's why I like it so much more than anything I've ever done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been, 2-3 years?
It's been 3 years, yeah.
Since like a true Wade Bowen project. You did the Randy Rogers project, you did the Gospel Project, right?
Yeah.
So when you're entering into this phase of you're coming off those projects and you're going to do a Wade Bowen project and it's going to be your record and you don't know kind of which step is the right step to take, when does it become clear to you that, okay, well, now is the time to get back to my roots and make that sort of Texas sound record? When did that become clear?
I think in writing the record, you look for a reason. For me, I like to have a reason behind everything I do, every song I write. And I think just looking for a reason. I was coming out of a major label deal, and I was coming out of a huge publishing deal and all this stuff, and had the world by the tail, and it all just kind of fell apart. So I think I was really lost when I started this project. When I met with Keith for the first time, I think he's been down that road before many times, and I think he felt that. And he felt, I was a little bit lost, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think it's okay to get lost at times. I think that's when you really find yourself. And I kind of reinvented the wheel for me. I mean, I really just almost hit rock bottom musically and didn't really know what record I wanted to make. And Keith was really good at pulling that out of me, showing me again, hey, you're really good. You should believe in yourself more. And man, I came out of this with all kinds of ideas and all kinds of confidence that I've never had. I feel more confident now, 20 years into my career, than I've ever felt before. And I think this record really, I'll look back, I think when it's all said and done, I'll look back as this record as the one for me that really, I don't know if it'll be the biggest, I don't know if it'll be the most popular. That's not up to me. That's up to the people that buy it and listen to it and spread the word. But for me, this is a very personal record and feels good. I love listening to this record, and it's the album I really should have made sonically and lyrically, early in my career, and I'm glad that, Keith pulled it out of me somehow.
Yeah. Keith, speaking of Keith, it's really the first time in your career that you've made a record with a buddy, with a friend, as opposed to just, an industry producer or what have you. Do you think that without Keith, this could have been made? Because you talk about this musical rock bottom, right? And you have your buddy Keith there to kind of pull you out of that spot, and he knows you so well. If you were in there with just a run-of-the-mill producer, do you think that still could have happened?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of great producers, and I don't want to knock anything I've done in the past and the producers and players I've worked with in the past either, because they're all these records are, all songs and records for me are just captured moments in time of where you are in that time of your life. So, but do I think I could have made this record without him? Not a chance. I'm at the point in my career where I could easily write songs and get the ones that I like the best and go in and find someone good to play on it and engineer it and make it sound good. I could have easily done that. And I chose to work with a buddy that I felt would push me and a guy that would get something more out of it. And I really felt like I needed that. I think that's why I was lost, is I didn't want to just make another record. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make something that made an impact on my life and an impact on my career. And he was really good at doing that. I mean, he's really good of, there's no way I could have made this record without him. And I think this record represents, I've been playing music. I play 160 or so shows a year, and I think I've always been, all of my records have been very songwriter driven and very intense and very emotional, open diary kind of albums. And this one, has a lot of that still there. You know, it's not a completely different sounding Wade Bowen, but it adds that live element that we've had in our shows. So I think we've taken those albums in the past and just cranked them up when we get on stage, you know, and made them a little greasier and a little dirtier and a little more rock, a little edgier, you know. Yeah. And this record does that automatically.
And that's hard to capture.
It is.
It's any
really
band
hard.
or musician will tell you, you know, to capture that live energy, you know.
It is really hard. I've tried to capture it before, and I thought I did. And then you look back and go, wow, I really didn't now listening to this. You know, it's this one finally captures, I think, what I do live the best.
Yeah, that's exciting. I want to dive into some of these songs in here, and a song that I love that we actually heard while you were coming out here is So Long 6th Street. Now, I love Austin, Texas, and 6th Street especially. I had my first experience in Austin like 2 years ago during the South by Southwest Festival, which is probably Austin natives' like least favorite week of the year. It's when all these companies come in and kind of take over town. Yeah. But 6th Street, you know, like I said, I grew up here in New York City, New Jersey. Like, that is crazier than like Times Square. To me, I mean, on a Saturday or Friday night, I mean, that is popping. You got University of Texas kids right there, you know, in Austin, and then there's music pouring out of every bar and what have you. Yeah. But talk about your relationship with Austin, Texas, because I think it's kind of beautiful. It's really a story of, you know, the best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah, it's obviously a moving on song. I started playing music when I was in college in West Texas, and I played there the last 3 years of my college days, and moved to Austin right after that, because music capital of the world, I felt I'd need to be in Austin. It's where everyone should be. I thought that, you know, young and moronic, thinking, you know, this is where I got to be. And I moved there and found out very quickly that, and we had a pretty good following going in West Texas, and I found out very quickly when I got to Austin that anything you do in West Texas, nobody else in the world really hears about. It's like a whole other country almost over there. So I pretty much started all over when I got to Austin, which is pretty disheartening when you've been working really hard for 3 years and felt like you were gaining ground, and all of a sudden you get to Austin and realize, oh man, no, I'm pretty much starting all over. So it was I lived in Austin for 2 years, and it was a really tough 2 years. It was definitely the most difficult time of my career, the biggest struggle, but I also learned the most during that time. But obviously I think when we struggle and come out on the other side, we look back and say, man, I learned a lot more than if I'd have just cruised on through it. So I look back on that 2 years, and that's what this song means to me. It reminds me of those times when I was begging for $75 to play for 4 hours, you know, just whatever I could to get by. I was paying for an apartment in Austin, but I was there maybe 4 or 5 nights a month, you know. So this song brings back a lot of those memories, and it's not specifically 6th Street in general that I'm missing or talking about, but it's leaving and knowing you've found a place that you can always come back and always feel good about coming back home. And Austin is always that for us.
Do you personally feel or see any parallels between the hardship that you faced in Austin and sort of this musical dead end you were facing for a time while making this record?
I think it all is relative. I mean, I think it all relates to each other. I mean, I try to make every business decision in music based off having a 50 or 60-year career and not trying to be an overnight success, although I wouldn't mind that.
Have you always had that? That's a very mature and wise sort of disposition to have. Have you always had that?
I've surrounded myself with people that help me understand that, you know, and I think it's really important for people to try to make those decisions, not temporary decisions that you know are going to last a long time. And, you know, I'd love to be 60 or 70 and still making great music. And I think through that whole process, that we're going to have a lot of lows and a lot of highs, and hopefully somewhere in the middle there it just balances everything out. And as you know, as songwriters are supposed to do, we take those low times, I take them and write about them and try to pull what I can out of them, and that's a way of therapy, getting it off my chest, making myself feel better about them. And so far it's worked.
Yeah, definitely has. Another song I did want to ask you about is Day of the Dead on this record. Now, you've said that is the most unique song you've ever recorded in your entire career. Mm-hmm. And actually, the story of how you got the song and you made the song is pretty unique, too. So could you...
Yeah, it's about Lajitas, which is way southwest Texas. Way southwest Texas, in the middle of nowhere. I played a festival there with my producer, Keith Gaddis, long time ago. And in writing, trying to figure out a lot of Texas things we could write about, this came up. Keith brought this song to me and said, you know, I think this is relatable because of the good times we had in Lajitas. I want you to help me finish it. And I just laughed and said, man, it's done. It doesn't.
Perfect the way it is.
Yeah. I could have tried to fake my way through it and said I need to add a line here or something like just to get songwriting credit, but that's not fair. It was a well-written song already. And I just said, you know, let's just go cut it. And I don't really cut. I always write the majority of my stuff on every album, but I always have a few outside songs that I didn't write. And I usually it's because it's different from anything I would write, or it hits home in a different way that I didn't think of or something. And this one does both of those. I mean, it really is a very unique song. And then you add the production with, you know, the horns and the accordion and just the arrangement in general is very South Texas feel, and I think we captured a cool Tex-Mex enchilada eating kind of song, you know.
Totally, yeah, and no, that's what's cool about the record too is it's a full array of Texas, you know, in terms of the influences and the sounds, and you know that's the essence that we've talked about. You captured here. I alluded to at the top, you know, you got so much going on even outside of the world of music, and something that must make you so proud is you are celebrating 20 years of the Bowen Family Foundation this year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Deserves a round of
Appreciate
applause.
it. Thank you.
You guys have raised over $2.5 million over the course of those 2 decades, and I just wanted to ask you, take it back to square one. I'm curious, what are the origins of that foundation 20 years ago? Why start it?
Well, the foundation itself is actually only 6 years old. The event, the major event surrounding that got the whole thing going is 20 years old this year.
Oh, no way. Okay.
And so the foundation actually, just because it sounds better, the last 6 years that it's been since we started it, we've raised over $2.5 million, almost $3 million.
Just in 6 years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was started as just a fun thing 20 years ago, a golf tournament, and now it's a 3-day event. We have sponsor parties, and we have an all-day music festival. Bowen Music Fest that's the real event revolving around the whole foundation. And then we have a golf tournament the very next day. So I love doing it. I tell everybody that I may work too hard, but if I don't, I get really bored and get in trouble. So it's better to just keep working. And having a foundation that my family runs and works and supports, and it is nonprofit 100%. None of us make any money off of it, the entire event. My sister runs it. Her name's Jill. She's incredible and works. You know, it becomes the foundation itself is a year-round job. I mean, we're always, you know, getting calls for money. We're always trying to help sponsor other events, and try to do as much as we can. And it's something I really love working with children. I love helping. The thing is, I've found through this whole process is there's so many people in the world that are trying to do great things for others, and they don't have the resources or the money to do it. And so there's no greater feeling than being able to enable that or help them along to provide those resources or provide a little bit of money so they can make something else happen for other people. And that's really the main focus and the goal of our foundation. We just want to help as many people as we can.
Definitely. It's a beautiful thing, man.
Thank you. It's fun.
Are there dates yet for the 2018 event?
Yeah, it's June 3rd and 4th.
Okay.
We do it in my hometown. I grew up in Waco, Texas, and so that's where it started because obviously for a long time in my career, nobody knew who the heck I was, so only people in Waco. So that's where we started doing it, and it's, like I said, last year's music festival, it's on a Sunday, which is always a difficult, it's a challenge. But last year on a Sunday, we had almost 6,000 people at our concert all day long, and
oh my gosh,
it ends with about a 3.5-hour jam with me and my friends. All kinds of guys come out, and we learn their songs and bring them up and organize chaos, and it's all for a great time.
Yeah, and what's better than that? You know what I mean?
Nothing,
There for a good cause with your buddies. It's awesome.
Yeah, lots of good friends that support us as well, and couldn't do it without them.
Definitely. All right, well, we do have some time for some studio audience questions here before we wrap up for the day.
Oh, no.
The first one's going to come up right here.
So I was wondering if there was any specific artist that influenced your career.
Yes, quite a few of them, and I still search for them today quite a bit. I mean, we're all products of our influences for sure. I grew up listening to Guy Clark, and actually my biggest influence is Bruce Springsteen, which I've mentioned already. But I'm on a Springsteen kick because I saw Springsteen on Broadway last night, and I'm absolutely speechless and floored by what I witnessed last night. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I actually named my son Bruce. I'm that kind of a nerd fan. And so he's been probably the last 10 years or so, especially of my career, he's definitely been the most influential artist for me.
And you talk about that longevity that you yourself, you
Yeah, he's the epitome
aim
of
for.
that.
I mean, exactly.
And Guy Clark was great too. I mean, he just passed away a couple years ago, but he made his best record, in my opinion, when he was 25 years old, and then I believe he was 65 when he made my second favorite record that he ever did, and that's the kind of longevity I'd love to have. I'd dream of having that.
What was the first Bruce song you ever heard?
Atlantic City was the first one. My cousin played it for me. I grew up listening to a lot of mainstream country in Waco, and my sisters. I've got two older sisters and one younger one, and they were always dragging me to Alabama and George Strait and Garth Brooks and all that stuff. And I really didn't know anything else that was out there. And then my dad, as I got older and started really writing, is when I started diving headfirst into like Waylon Jennings and Willie and Guy Clark and the real songwriters. And that's about the same time I discovered Springsteen. My cousin played me in Atlantic City, and I was floored.
Oh, my God. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
I love that song. We have time for a couple more questions, so let's get to our second one.
Hi, our next question is going to come from an online viewer. Ryan wants to know, what is your favorite Sean McConnell song?
Oh, gosh. Sean McConnell, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is an amazing singer-songwriter, lives in Nashville, and he's actually up here in New York right now, hanging out, probably down the road at a bar. He's my buddy. We write a lot of songs together, and I'd say probably my favorite song of his, it's tough to choose, but I'd probably say it's a song called Running Underwater. Okay. Really, really cool song.
Why that one?
Last record. Listen to it.
Yeah.
Listen to it.
Speaks for itself.
Yeah, it's so powerful. He's one of the most powerful singers I've ever heard in my life, and he's a great player too. Just producer, does it all. He's a overload of talent.
Totally. All right, we have time for one more studio audience question, and it'll come right here.
Hey, Wade, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
What happens to the songs that don't make the cut? Do they go on another
question.
album, or?
Good question. I stockpile them, and I always revisit them every record. And I've overwritten, if that's a good word for it, for every album I've ever done. This is my 11th album, I believe. Wow. Something like that, maybe including all the live ones. But every record I have a bunch of songs. For me especially, I cram a lot. So right at the very end, I'm cranking out songs and songs and songs. And so most of the ones that don't make the record, I revisit them for the next album and then keep revisiting them. There's a song on here called Broken Glass that I wrote probably 6 years ago by myself, after a fight with my wife, and so I have to rehash that every time I sing it. But I'm always looking for songs and always digging back in the old catalog for sure. I mean, and I think hopefully I don't hit a big drought songwriter-wise, but if I do, I think I have a good stockpile of old songs that never made records that I can dig through and see what happens. I mean, the fun is having all of those and the ability, the freedom to do with whatever you want with them down the road, Yeah. You can do all kinds of stuff, as we've learned through box sets or whatever, I know we're not going to do box sets. We have to do streaming box sets now or something. But
Exactly. What do you call a box set? That's a good question.
Day and age is different, but yeah, with all, especially the freedom in music now. Your question earlier was what's the difference in Texas music, and I think music now is more universal and more wide open than it's ever been. So, the freedom. If we stop looking at it as like how do we put a handle on all of that's going on, instead of looking at it and say, well, there's so much freedom in music. Let's embrace it and figure out how we can make it good for all of us, And it's pretty cool that country music is so many different forms now, and rock is so many different forms now, and so nobody's wrong, everybody's right. Just keep doing something you believe in, and keep writing songs and recording songs that you love, and I think everything else takes care of itself.
Totally. I love that outlook, man. I wish more artists actually were open, especially in country, you know, open to the varying changes and the evolution of these genres. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was hard for a long time, and especially in country, you know, because country is so traditional, as blues is. You know, like it'd be hard to see blues really change like we've seen country do. You know, like country is almost more pop a lot now than it really is traditional country, and I think it's cool that it has so many different forms now, and I've just never been one of those artists that draws a line in the sand and says, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, especially because I'm probably on the broke side of that, and the ones that are on the other side of that are making a lot more money.
Right.
And have a lot bigger shows. And so there's a lot of good talent and a lot of great music in the world, and now we have more than ever the process and the tools to be able to, for these young talented kids that are even 15 years old, that can record and write and chase their dreams a lot earlier than they ever wanted to. So we just have to embrace it and figure it out.
Yeah, totally. Well, Wade, thank you so much for taking the time on a snowy
That's my
day.
soapbox. Sorry, my
No.
soapbox.
I mean, I asked.
Thanks
you.
for having me, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, the record's Solid Gold. It's right there. It's available everywhere now. Be sure to check it out. And once again, thanks for stopping by, Wade.
My pleasure. Thank y'all.